Nationals have come out and said that they are dumping net zero by 2050. So this was a commitment that the Liberals and Nationals took with them to the last federal election under Peter Dutton. They got their asses handed to them. They then broke up the coalition. Now, that's not that unusual after a big election loss. They both separate so they can figure out who they are and what their policies are going to be. And then usually, well, every time in history so far, they've come back together, no problem. That's probably what's going to happen again this time. So don't be too freaked out about the fact that they split up. But what's happened now, there was a leadership challenge in the Nationals, which we don't have the public record, that they don't publicize their internal polling when there's a leadership spill. But my understanding from an inside person that I have is that it could not have been closer. That was the language they used. So I believe there was a single vote in it, and David Littleproud kept his position as the Nationals Party leader. Now, that's really important in my view. David Littleproud is, in my opinion, a coward. I've got long history with him on the water issue. He was a water minister when we held a protest at Parliament House. He was under a lot of pressure from us, and then he got out of Dodge and handed over the water ministry to Keith Pitt in order to not have to have the fight. He just didn't want to. He didn't want to actually have to be face to face with us, standing up for what the government wanted him to stand up for, and nor was he going to give us give the irrigators what they actually needed. And so he just got out of there. He didn't want to have that fight. He's been a mealy-mouthed flip-flopper on climate change. So there's a really important detail here. The Nationals and the Liberals love to say, so Susan Ley as well, we've got a picture of her on the screen, Susan Ley and David Littleproud love to say that they have never voted for net zero.
Yeah.
Which is technically true, because the only net zero legislation that's gone before Parliament was the Labor Party's net zero legislation, not the Liberal Party's net zero legislation. So, of course, they voted against it. But they didn't vote against it because they disagree with it in principle. They voted against it because it wasn't theirs, and it didn't have their timeline and their targets on it. They support net zero in principle. So what we've got is a situation where they have an opportunity to seize what I'm going to call the Reform UK moment. But it's happening around the world. In France with Marine Le Pen, in Italy with what's her name, in Japan with their new prime minister, in Argentina with Javier Milei, in Germany with the AfD, in the US with Trump, in the UK with Reform. We are watching around the world massive political movements forming behind people with principles. People who will passionately fight for and articulate their principles. And those principles are, I'm going to put my people first. And all around the world, that is a universal language everywhere in the world, that politicians are saying, I'm going to put my people first. And they're doing it credibly, and they're doing it passionately and consistently. Yeah. They are roaring ahead. Now, Australian politicians, who are usually cowards, look at that and go, oh, if we can just pretend to do that, then we'll get lots of votes. And that's exactly what David Littleproud is doing now. He said in his announcement, and I've got a video coming out about this, it was meant to come out today, but there's a typhoon happening in the Philippines and my editor is bunkering down. So that video has been delayed until tomorrow, all going well. Otherwise, I don't know, I might have to find a new editor. Hope you're okay. But what David Littleproud did when he announced the abandoning of net zero was he said, we're abandoning net zero till by 2050. We're going to find better ways of reducing emissions. You're like, well, hang on. That's just a rebrand of emissions reductions. All you're doing is shuffling around the timelines. You're not actually rejecting the climate change religion. You're not actually taking a passionate position that is pro-Australia and pro-Australian industry and pro-Australian people. You're not doing what Reform have done, what Trump did, what Milei did. You're just trying to have a little bit of the appearance of that in the hope that some of the zhuzh will rub off on you. And the danger here is this. All the political pundits are saying you cannot abandon net zero. To abandon net zero is political suicide. If the Nationals half-ass this, and let's say the Liberals come together with them on half-assing this, then unfortunately they're going to confirm this wrong idea that you can't abandon net zero, because what will happen is they'll abandon net zero in name only, mealy-mouthed, compromised, foot in both camps. The voting public will see right through it, and it won't give them what Reform have got. It won't give them what Millei's got. It won't give them what Le Pen and AfD and all of these other movements. They won't get that boost because there's no actual passion behind it. There's no actual alternative being offered here. And as a result, they'll fail at the polls. And then the pundits will say, see, you shouldn't have abandoned net zero. We told you that Australians want net zero. No, we want leaders with balls, with a bit of courage, with a bit of spine with a bit of vision, and David Littleproud is not capable of offering that.
I don't think anyone in Australia, honestly, at this point, that's currently in the political cycle is capable of it. I really don't. Not in Victoria, not in Queensland. They all do exactly what you said. Like even the, what's the Premier of Queensland, Christopher? He's come out doing, adult crime. Great. But like on everything else, he's a wet rag, right? So this is the thing. They grab things that seem popular. And of course, it gets to a point where everyone's so angry and wants someone to do something that, like Christopher has as a premier, and thankfully he is doing that. But he's failing on a whole host of other things. This is my frustration. No one in Australia, and I can say this categorically, has a backbone that currently has power in this country. Very few people, like I would say Pauline Hanson would be one of them, but even on some things she's quite watered down. They tend to have one issue and they run hard on that and then they fall over on everything else. Do you know why? And I've said this a million times, this always relates back to tall poppy. In Australia, we have a problem with being disliked. We don't want to be disliked. We want to be the popular leader. We want to be like the Bob Hawke having the beer with everyone at the pub. We want to be the Dan Andrews, like, I stand with Dan. That's what these politicians want. They want a movement around them. There's a reason Nigel Farage, Millet, and Georgia Maloney are gaining traction because they say what seems to be the unpopular thing if you listen to the news, but it's actually what people want to hear. People want to hear honesty, not political talking points, not media spin. They want to hear that you are in the trenches. This is why Trump's popular, by the way. This is the thing that everyone fails to recognize about Trump. They keep going, oh, he's a billionaire. Yeah, he's a billionaire who used to walk through his construction zones in all of his property developments and speak to the bricklayer, speak to the conveyancer, speak to the guy driving the truck. Trump could talk to anybody. He was charismatic. Right? And he has a gold-plated toilet seat, whatever the fuck. He could still speak to anyone. You know what people in the Canberra do? They look down at their noses at people like you and I. Yeah, they won't 100%. Come on our podcast. Oh, no, that's beneath me. Oh, Carly, she's a bogan. Oh, she's a Jezebel. She swears. Okay.
Haven't you heard that she swears?
But this is what they're like. Oh, no, you can't do that. That's not appropriate. In Australia, we very much care that, you say the right thing. Fuck off. Say the thing. Yeah. Say the truth. That's why people like you and I are gaining audiences.
And this is the thing that Australian politics hasn't caught up with yet. That people's perception moves on. It's a little bit like a movie. You watch an old movie, the special effects today look terrible, but at the time they looked amazing. We become more insightful. Our perceptions get trained. So for a long time, each way bet, mealy-mouthed, nuanced politics seemed sophisticated. And people thought, oh, wow, what a statesman. Wow, he's really impressive. He seems like he'd be a great leader, or she seems like she'd be a great leader, as the case may be. And we could get hoodwinked by that. But over time, our perceptions become more insightful. We start to see through all of that. We start to say, hey, we've heard that before, and yet the problem hasn't been fixed yet. Maybe the rhetoric isn't all that there is to this. And over time, we change what we want changes. We've reached a stage where en masse around the world, the voting public are no longer able to be placated with nothing but empty promises and with nothing but kind of mealy-mouthed, carefully worded, lawyered kind of statements. We actually want to see some fire. We want the human being back in politics. We're tired of them all being interchangeable automatons, all saying the same thing, because ultimately none of them are actually saying their thing. They're all saying the thing that the focus groups told them to say. We want the human being back in politics. That's what Nigel Farage brought. They said he was unelectable. He's got the weird accent. He's got the crooked teeth. He's a nobody. He's got no connections. He's got no money. Well, he's the reason the UK left the European Union experiment, and he's likely to be the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, no matter what his haters say. Thank you very much. I hope he's got good security, by the way. So, and why? Because when people looked at him, they saw a human being. And there's power in that. That's the moment we're entering. But the Liberal Party and the National Party, I think, are too attached to the way they've done things in the past. I will say, though...
Sorry, go.
You said that there wasn't really anyone in there. I'm going to disagree. There's no one in the leadership positions in those parties, but they have some fabulous people. And we saw, was it Andrew Hastie recently, or was it Angus Taylor? It was Andrew Hastie stepped down from the front bench of the
Yeah.
Liberal Party. Now, that's a necessary prerequisite towards challenging for the leadership. Now, he's not doing it straight away because he's biding his time, and I think that's the right move. I don't think he should challenge within the next 9 months, but I think come mid to late next year, that's the time to challenge, take over the leadership for about a year before the following federal election. And my hope is that we will go into the next federal election with probably Andrew Hastie at the helm. It could be Angus Taylor. He would be a lot better than what we've got at the moment, but I would prefer Hastie, but we'll see. And then with a different Nationals Party leader, I'm not too worried about who, but certainly not David Littleproud, because neither of them has the personability, neither of them has the communication skills, and neither of them has the authenticity to actually argue for Australia and to argue against net zero. We need to replace them with people who are clean, that haven't been a part of creating the swamp in the first place, because they can argue authentically against those things because they're not the reason we got them in the first place. So that would be my hope. And it can happen. I actually think it will happen. If I had to put money on it, I would say that at the next federal election, Susan Lee will not be the leader of the Liberal Party and David Littleproud will not be the leader of the Nationals.
Well, you've survived another episode and you're still here watching. So at this point, you should probably go and subscribe. And if you don't, you are going to be at the wrath of Spicy Carls. And whilst you're there, empty your pockets. There's a buy us a coffee button, and we'd really appreciate it so that I can show up every day and just make Topher's life an absolute living hell. Much appreciated.